Thank you. We'll now begin session 1 titled Human-Centered Technology and Policy in the Era of AI and Humanoid Robots. We will be using Mentimeter for the audience to have opportunities to ask questions. Please scan the QR codes that are shown up here and up there, to ask questions. Those of you in the back might need to use the zoom in function on your camera. Please send your questions before the Q&A session actually begins, as we will be stopping collection of the questions once the Q&A session starts. This session will be moderated by Dr. Boyoung Kim, research professor at CSPS Korea. Please welcome her to the stage. Please give a round of applause. Thank you.
Hello, I'm sure. Hi everyone, my name is Boyoung Kim. I'm delighted to introduce session 1. So welcome to session 1. We are covering the topic of human-centered technology and policy in the era of AI and humanoid robots. So, artificial intelligence, humanoid robots, physical AI, digital twin, NVIDIA, ganbu chicken. What are these buzzwords nowadays? So these technologies are real and they're advancing really fast, and they're indeed going to revolutionize our everyday lives and bring us so many new opportunities. But at the same time, it's inevitable that these technologies are also going to bring about complex societal challenges we all will be grappling with. And to ensure that these technologies truly serve human needs, it requires more than just technical breakthroughs. So what we need is that collaboration across humanities, social sciences, and engineering to consider ethical social implications and real-world social impact. So in this session, we are joined by experts in science, technology and society, human-technology interaction, and innovation and R&D policy. So together, they will help us connect scholarly insight with policy practice and consider how Korea can chart a strategic, human-centered approach to technology governance at a time of both international cooperation and growing global competition. So I hope today's session inspires fresh perspectives for practitioners, researchers, and students alike, and encourage us to imagine a resilient and forward-looking path of South Korea's future in the age of AI and humanoid robots. So first of all, we're gonna welcome Dr. Cheong John, and I'm gonna introduce Cheong John, Dr. Cheong John. He is an associate professor in the Graduate School of Science, Technology, and Policy at KAIST. He holds a PhD in Science, Technology, and Society from MIT. And previously, he served as a postdoctoral research fellow at the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science in Berlin. And Dr. Cheong John's work examines how humans and technologies shape each other within social and cultural contexts, as well as the policy challenges that emerge from these interactions. His current research focuses on cultures of AI and robotics in South Korea, along with broader questions surrounding virtuality, remoteness, and humanlessness. And at KAIST, he's also affiliated with the Center for Anthropocene Studies and the KAIST Institute for Artificial Intelligence. So today he's going to present his research on a robot for your grandma, ethical and policy challenges in robotic care. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cheong John.
Thank you, Professor Kim, for the generous invitation, but also an introduction. As introduced, I study human-technology relationship within Korean context these days. So my presentation won't be directly related to diplomacy per se, but I hope we can think about something that might be related to your own interest in international relations in the age of AI and robotics.
I'm sorry, there's a little technical glitch.
Yeah, there's always technical glitch in the age of AI and robotics, and that's actually related to my theme in this presentation, how we work with this advanced technology, but at the same time with all the technical glitches of the institutional frictions, organizational issues, and cultural tensions, and etc. Because these new technologies do not just operate autonomously or independently. They require a lot of human work and institutional measures and cultural norms and etc. That's I think the main theme of my presentation today. So my presentation is titled "A Robot for Your Grandma: Ethical and Policy Challenges in Robotic Care." So with my PhD student Hee-sun Shin, we've done some research on care robots for the elderly, for the older adults in South Korea. There are many older adults who are living alone, and then the governments and also in industry are trying to help these older adults who are living alone by introducing new technologies into their homes. And then this care robot or social robot is one of the examples of technical solutions to the problem of the aging society. And I'll describe this technology and then the policy challenges and ethical challenges that this new technology is raising for our society. So as I said, the demographic change, the aging population is one of the biggest social challenges that we are facing. And then a lot of people hope that the AI and robotics technologies can help us tackle this problem of the aging population and how to help the older adults live their life in the later stages when many of them are spending their time alone in their homes. And as children or grandchildren, we are also thinking about how we can take better care of our parents or grandparents, but sometimes we are living away from them. We cannot meet them very often, and then we worry about their welfare and then their loneliness and their health and etc. And that's when the robots are coming into the scene as one of the solutions to help tackle the problem. And then we are increasingly asking this question: can robots take care of our parents or grandparents? We cannot be there to meet our parents or grandparents, but maybe robots can do that work for us. That's one of the interesting questions for us. And here's one example of the company or the technology that is trying to help that task with a care robot developed for elderly population. Here the website says, have you ever felt frustrated because you couldn't take care of your parents' meals or medications? The question that applies to many of us. Many of us are feeling frustrated because we cannot be there, we cannot be always there for our parents or grandparents. They need to take their meals and they need to take their medications, and they also need people to talk to. And then as children or grandchildren, we are very often frustrated about that. And this company has developed a robot named Hyodol. This is this topic of our research. This is a South Korean robot for older adults who are mostly who are living alone. So the name is Hyodol, and the Hyo means filial piety. So it's a very common word in East Asia. And then it's a doll. So it's a doll that practices Hyo. That does the work of respecting and taking care of the elderly generation. And surprisingly, there are more than 10,000 units are distributed and that they are in use. So there are many people who have been given this robot doll and then spending time with this robot. You can buy this robot individually as a customer product, but mostly this robot is being distributed as part of the municipal welfare program. So the local governments, they spend their welfare budget to purchase and license this robot, and then they distribute them to some of the elderly old adults who they think will benefit from this robot. Let me just show you what it looks like and then how it speaks, just to give you an idea of this kind of robot that is being widely used in. So this is how the robot speaks to the user. And this is, she's one of the users that we have interviewed, and then we watched how she spends time with the robot. Right, so did you hear that? So Grandma, I missed you so much. Please pet me. Please hug me. So this is the robot, and then this is the user. Then how do we make this robot work, or can it work? Can the robot take care of the elderly? Can the AI or robotics technology really be the solution for the aging population? And then given the time constraints, I'll just focus on two aspects of this challenge. One of them is the policy challenge. How do we make it work, or can it work as a social measure to tackle this problem? And then the second one is ethical problem. Is it okay to ask the robot to be with our parents and grandparents? Is it desirable that our grandparents are spending so much time with the robot when they are alone at home? So there is some policy issues, but also there are some personal and ethical issues as well. So for the policy issue first, how does it work? The point is that the robot does not work independently or autonomously. We cannot just leave the robot in their home and then say goodbye, and then talk and say to our grandparents, here is a robot. This is a very advanced technology. Please spend time with this, and then you'll be friends with this robot, and then you'll be okay. And then we leave their home, and then so the things don't work that way. It takes a lot of extra work to really make this work, to really create or to really facilitate the relationship between the human and the robot. And this is how it works. So there is, of course, the robot device itself, but there is a smartphone app that is used by the caregivers who make visits to the elderly homes, the welfare workers. So they need to be using this app to really monitor the relationship. And then there's also the web monitoring system used by the institutions. They need to be watching how many people are using this robot, how many people are actively engaging with the robot, how many people are disconnected from the robot. So this is the personal device monitoring app, also the management system. So you can see this is all working as a part of a big institutional system. So this is how the municipal governments license a lot of robots and distribute them to the elderly people in their homes, right? So this is no like a single, like a customer or user technology interaction. This is much more institutional and organizational and social efforts to make this happen. So there is a local welfare center, and then they send individual caregivers to make visits to elderly houses. They are already doing it without the robot. But with the robot, they are now delivering the robot to the elderly houses, and they are monitoring the relationship with the smartphone apps, and the institutions also manage the system. So this is a huge system of care and management. And then these are the social workers, the home visit workers, who are working very hard to really take care of the elderly, and then they are the mediators between the user and the robot. Without their human work, the users, the elderly people, cannot really get close to the robot. The relationship is very difficult to maintain without the hard work of these human caregivers. And also the company or the welfare institutions, they're also doing a lot of work behind the scene, because they have to be very carefully watching who is using the robot well, who is not using the robot well. Is there any technical problems, glitches, or other connection issues, etc. So there needs to be a very well-designed management system for these care robots. Again, this is not a one-on-one, just like a customer service issue. It is much broader social efforts to make robotic care work. So that's one the policy dimension, and then the other second issue is the more personal and ethical dimension. I'll show you the kind of relationship that this user is having with the robot. Here we are, the researchers, my student and myself are talking to the user, and she's talking about the robot, and then the robot begins to talk. So you can see how the robot just randomly speaks to the user. This is all pre-scripted and all pre-programmed statements, but then it's very powerful. So the user has to respond to the robot. So they are gradually building up a kind of emotional relationship with the robot. And these are the kinds of speeches that robot makes. Not just a routine medication reminder, etc., but also some very emotional and then very human statements as well. And then these kinds of conversations, some sort of something that is similar to human conversation, the robot is starting to build up emotional relationship with the user. And then these days, they are they have developed the next generation of a robot with a ChatGPT function. Now the robot can talk even better, and then the conversation will become deeper, and then it's likely that the relationship also will get deeper. And then how do we really manage that relationship between the human and the robot in this kind of situation? That's the kind of ethical challenge. Is it okay that they are having more and more conversation and deeper relationship with the robot here? So this is the fundamental question that I have in our research. What is an effective and ethical way for robot to take care of old others? So it needs to be effective, but also it needs to be ethical. How do we create a relationship? How we manage a relationship as a society facing the challenge of the aging population? Okay, I'll wrap up my presentation here, and then I'll look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
In the interest of time, we're going to skip the quick Q&A session right after each talk, and we're going to have panel discussion afterwards after all three speakers present their work. So you'll have a chance to ask questions afterwards. So let me introduce myself again. My name is Boyoung Kim. I'm a research faculty at the Center for Security Policy Studies Korea at here Mason, Korea. And today I am going to talk about this project titled Beyond Innovation versus Regulation, how AI policy framing shapes attitudes towards substitution of AI for humans. So I think the first talk really highlighted the dilemma between effective versus ethical care, and this talk will be talking about, given this background, how policy framings could affect people's attitudes towards these emerging technologies. Let's get started, and I found the clicker. Okay. I would like to first of all highlight that this work has been done in collaboration with our very own Dr. So Young Won, in global affairs, and Dr. James Broderick, right up there, in computer game design. So this is a collaborative research effort between psychologists, political scientists, and extended reality game design experts. So, I want to first provide you with some broad background describing the relationship between policy framing and public opinion. So there is this bi-directionality between these two components. On one hand, policy discourses and governance frameworks shape how the public understands and evaluates new technologies like artificial intelligence, of course. And policy frames work by highlighting certain aspects of an issue while downplaying the others, and governance approaches can highlight and suggest what our society prioritizes and values. But on the other hand, there's this other way around. So public opinions can definitely shape policy framings and governance approaches. So citizen concerns can draw policy agendas and shape regulatory decisions. And governance, and like people's acceptance or resistance can also set the tone, like determine the trajectory of the innovation overall. So there's these bidirectionality between the policy framing and public opinion. And in this work, what we focused on was this one direction, from policy framing to public opinion. We wanted to examine how policy framing affects people's attitudes toward technology, specifically AI technology. And this focus is especially relevant because of this notion called the AI regulation dilemma. So there's, since the emergence of artificial intelligence, there has been really constant struggles between striking a balance between innovation versus regulation. So innovation would be to prioritize economic growth, competitiveness by investing a lot of money and just advancing the technologies again and again. And by contrast, the regulation-focused policy agenda would be to highlight the protection of public interest and making safeguards in order to avoid putting anyone at risk because of these technological advancement or leaving some people out. So there's this dilemma, AI regulation dilemma, and too little regulations can raise risks in public distrust, which could also lead to misuse or no use of the technology at all. And at the same time, too much regulation can stifle the innovation, right? It could slow down the technological advancement and economic growth. So policy communication often leans toward either innovation and regulation, depending on the priorities emphasized. So our broad question with this background in mind was that the central question was, does policy framing that either emphasize innovation versus regulation shape attitudes towards AI technology differently? So our tentative answer to this question while we began the project was, yeah, most likely. But we were like, but the direction can be kind of ambiguous. So I'm gonna walk you through these predictions or rough expectations we had at the beginning. So we expected that innovation-focused policy could lead to more positive attitudes because it emphasizes benefits, progress, and opportunity. But at the same time, we expected that maybe it's gonna lead to more negative attitudes too, because it could trigger anxiety about societal disruptions, and job loss. And similarly, in a similar vein, we also expected the regulation-focused policy could lead to more negative attitudes because it highlights risks, dangers, and need for caution. And on the contrast, we also expected that maybe regulation-focused policy could also lead to more positive attitudes because people might think that there's a reassurance through oversight and control. And to test out these hypotheses, expectations, and to address our question, we ran an online experimental study. We recruited participants based in the United States, under 13 participants, and we asked them to read one of the 3 tests. It was so there are 3 different conditions. Control condition described AI technology in a neutral sense, just describing what it is about. And innovation-focused policy, of course, emphasized the importance of AI technology, innovation, and regulation-focused policy, that condition gave participants to read a long text that emphasized importance of AI regulation. So I'll give you a shortened version, a dated version of that text. The text actually the participants read were longer, but here I present a shorter version of it, and it's still long, but to highlight that it was like a neutral, for the control condition is a neutral description of AI technology. So I think this is more like a condition that you would be more used to in everyday life, like what AI technology is, what it is capable of doing, how it could be applied in a variety of domains. So this is, I think, how we get exposed to a lot in news media. So artificial intelligence refers to computer systems that perform tasks require human-like intelligence. AI technologies are widely used today in areas like search engines, voice assistants, medical diagnostics, and finance. They rely on methods such as machine learning and deep learning to recognize patterns, make predictions, and improve with experience. So AI ranges from narrow systems designed for specific tasks to more general systems that can handle diverse problems. Its development involves collaboration among universities, companies, and research organizations worldwide. So it's a really like kind of neutral description. And innovation condition, policy condition, the text that participants are assigned to this particular condition write this text. This government's AI policy focuses on promoting technological advancement and economic growth. It supports innovation by funding research, encouraging private investment, and fostering collaboration between public and private sectors. The government offers tax incentives, grants, and other financial support to help companies develop new AI applications. It also participates in international partnerships to share knowledge and accelerate progress. While guidelines exist to protect the public, they are flexible to allow experimentation and rapid innovation. So you can clearly highlight which is more emphasized here, right? So on the contrary, the regulation-focused policy condition was as follows. This government's AI policy prioritizing managing risks and protecting the public. It supports strict regulation to ensure AI is developed and used responsibly and ethically. The government sets standards and laws governing AI developers, users, and agencies, tests and certifies systems to ensure safety and performance. It also adopts internationally recognized regulatory frameworks and enforces them with penalties when necessary. Although innovation is encouraged, it occurs within strong oversight and clearly defined rules. So again, it's a really direct contrast to the innovation-focused policy. After they read these texts, one of these texts, participants were asked to, they had a chance to express their thoughts and feelings about AI technology. And there we focus on these three dimensions: enthusiasm, optimism toward AI. So an example questionnaire that I received for this dimension was artificial intelligence is exciting. So it's more like a general sense of excitement about this technology. And the second dimension was AI risk, threat perceptions. And it's more, again, like general sense of like threats and like threat perception. So I think artificial intelligence is dangerous. And the third dimension was about substitution of AI for humans. An example questionnaire they had to answer included an artificially intelligent agent would be better than a human employee in many routine jobs. So they read the test, they answered these questionnaires, and I'll give you a simple task. So people who are either assigned to either the innovation-focused policy or the regulation-focused policy were given this test. Imagine you're living in a country where the government has put into place the policy you just read about. In that situation, please share your attitudes and feelings toward artificial intelligence. So we made this tweak in order to help people not think about their actual country they're residing in right now, but kind of imagine a hypothetical situation where they're living in a country that like imposes this kind of policy. So for routine transactions are rather interact with an artificial intelligence system than with a human, and they could endorse or not the statement by expressing their judgment on a 1 to 5 point rating scale. Strongly disagree to strongly agree. Okay, results. I can make it, yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah, first of all, I'll show you the result from the enthusiasm optimism toward AI. So you can see the y-axis is blurry, but it should be ranging from 1 to 4, but actual full scale was from 1 to 5. And on the x-axis, you can see the control, innovation, regulation, 3 different conditions that people are exposed to. And these are the results. So you can see that participants showed generally really high enthusiasm about AI, and neither of the policy framing or the control condition really changed the level of excitement that people had overall towards the AI technology. And this was a result for the AI risk, threat perception dimension, and we found that, again, there are no differences among these 3 conditions, because we were focused on comparing the control condition with the innovation-focused policy condition, and control condition with the regulation-focused condition, but there were no differences at all among all 3 conditions. And you can see that people were not like, people do perceive some threats about like AI, but it's not way too high up there, so they have some moderate amount of like threat perceptions. But again, there were no differences among these 3 different conditions. And finally, these are the results for the substitution of AI for humans. So we found that participants exposed to either policy framing were less supportive of substituting humans with AI. So you could see the compared to the control condition on the left, innovation regulation condition, people were less likely to endorse the idea of like substituting humans with AI technology, like doing the routine tests, like replacing human laborers. So this was an interesting finding. We did not find any difference between innovation and regulation policy conditions. And these are the entire results you just saw. I just wanted to show you the overall picture. And then we had the exploratory hidden question. At the very end of this experiment, we asked participants about like, what is your political orientations? We were curious because it's about AI policy, so political orientations of these individuals would be affecting their judgments as well, right? So our question was, do people's political leanings shape how they respond to different AI policy framings? And we asked these questions, like, please indicate the political label with which you most identify. Strong Democrat, strong Republican, on a 7-point rating scale. And political ideology. Politically, I would describe myself as extremely liberal to extremely conservative. So they were able to express their political orientations this way. And then we ran some multiple regression analysis, and this is what we found. We found that overall, so on the left hand, it shows Democrat, and the second one, you can see the liberal. So you can see the patterns are similar, and okay, you can see that's more conservative, and people who identify themselves as strong Republicans are more likely to express enthusiasm, optimism toward AI, whereas they show less and less like AI risk and threat. And also, they were more likely to endorse like substituting of AI for humans. So this was the pattern we saw for both measures, party identification as well as, political ideology. So to conclude, it seems like policy framing influences public attitudes, but its impact appears selective rather than broad. Remember, only the substitutions of AI for humans was where we found the differences between the policy framing and the control condition. So we think that though this implies that when people discuss AI technology in a policy context, it seems like they start to think about the societal and economic implications of those changes, which makes them which heighten their awareness of those risks and implications in our bigger society, and which also leads them to be more cautious about substituting humans with AI technology. So it seems to be that by drawing attention to AI societal and economic implications through policy framing, policy discourse may encourage the kind of critical thinking and careful consideration we need as this technology advances. And we also found some interesting explorative, with the caution, relationship between political orientation and attitudes toward AI. So this is only a beginning of our long journey, I'm hoping to have, and there's so much work to be done in the future. So I would like to encourage you to join us in addressing these interesting, fascinating questions that are popping out every day. So if you're interested in these questions or have any suggestions for future directions, please contact me. And thank you so much for your attention. And we're going to take questions after the panel discussion, and I'm going to now introduce Dr. Junmo An, who is our last special guest speaker for session 1. We have session 2, by the way. So Dr. Junmo An is a full professor in the Department of Public Administration at Korea University and an academic collaborator at the University of Cambridge. Before entering academia, he contributed to national innovation policy through his work at the Small and Medium Business Administration of Ministry of Education, Science and Technology in South Korea. He earned his PhD from the University of Cambridge. His research focuses on open innovation, particularly in small and medium-sized enterprises and startups, digital transformation, entrepreneurship, and innovation policy and management. So please join me in welcoming Dr. An.
Great honor to be here. It's my first time to be at this nice campus, and I was very impressed about this well-organized event. Okay, the presentation title is AI policy in Korea. So I understand the main theme of the conference is that the tech politics, and then it is very important agendas in the field of the technology policy area. So I would like to talk about 5 different topics shortly, given minutes. Okay. So first is AI. Everyone talking about the AI, and then every day when we watch the TV or newspapers, they are talking about the new versions of ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and then we are watching very amazing their new how can I say skills or talent or capabilities, right? So this is very interesting. The table. If you see, this is top 10 global private companies in the world, and then as you can see, in, the 14, 13 years ago in 2011, look at the top 10: ExxonMobil, PetroChina, ULDXL, and then Chevron. They are all the petrochemical or oil companies, right? But nowadays, 2025, NVIDIA, MS, Apple, Google, Amazon, Meta, Broadcom, Tesla. So all the digital, so-called digital native companies, they are focusing on AI, and then they dominate the entire industry. That is happening in the nowadays. But AI is very difficult. So when we talk about AI, we need to understand the very unique characteristics of AI. I cannot explain all the detail in a short time, but if see, there is some characteristic like a J-curve, initial productivity decline. It is also a unique characteristic, but a lot of people, they don't know. If you see the graph on the bottom, it looks like alphabet J. Right? So that means if we adopt AI in the initial stage, the productivity does not increase. Usually it stagnates or even decrease. And then after some time, it bounces back and then goes up. It is called J curve. And then it is a dilemma of AI adoption. So when we adopt AI, we have to understand these features. And then of course there are a lot of different issues and then concerns like minority report issue or ethics, right? But nowadays we are experiencing a new version. Nowadays I'm subscribing a lot of different AI, ChatGPT, Claude, and then Gemini. Also use DeepSeek and then Grok. And then nowadays there is agent AI and then agent AI, right? So we don't need to do a lot of things by myself. I can ask ChatGPT or generative AI, and then they behave like humans. It's like my secretary. And then second topic is tech politics. Today's conference main thing, right? So for me, it is quite interesting because the United States is a very unique country. They have denied the industrial policy for a long time. So when we talk about industrial policy, usually United States, they said, "Oh, we believe the free wheels of free market, and then the market fundamental is important, and then the intervention of the central government should be minimized." It was their general, how can I say, the stance. But nowadays, even United States, they are talking about industrial policies back. Right? And then before the COVID-19, even before the Donald Trump government, there was a kind of how can I say, the schools emphasizing, for example, innovation-based economic security. And then they said, even though United States government sponsored a lot of R&D funding, the benefits are used by other countries, even in China or so. So they argue that the United States have to monitor all the benefits, outputs of R&D activity, and then control the export of important material, technologies, or even patents. It was their stance. But think of this, the United States and then China can argue this, but including Korea, other countries cannot be argue the technology supremacy. So including Europe, Korea, a lot of countries, they are interested in new concept like technology sovereignty. Technology sovereignty is mainly suggested by the German scholars like Adler in Fraunhofer Institute. And then the definition is that the capability of a nation to secure access to essential technologies by developing them domestically or sourcing them across diverse domains to avoid unilateral dependency, thereby ensuring national prosperity and then competitiveness. So there are two options. So doing internalizations, by making all the technology levels by myself, or ensuring accessibility, right? That's the reason why the like-minded countries or alliances emphasized nowadays. But the problem is that if we see the United States and then China, the two big the countries, United States, they have advantages in digital platform, engineered biology, nuclear fusion, quantum computing. But China is leading battery, 5G, or commercial drones. But there is a competition area, between two. They are overlap, right? Contested areas, AI, and then next generation communication, and then smart manufacturing, etc. And then among them, AI is the most important field because it is an enabling technology, and then it can apply it in every domain, every industry. That's a problem. And then if we see the global competition all over the world, right? So according to the many different indexes, United States is consistently number one, and then China is consistently number two. Mainly the UK are number three or fourth, and then Korea is top 10, but not sure because our size. Actually, size does matter in this field, right? And then let's see the China. What is happening in China? I think the speakers in the session 2 also talked this about. So I think my presentation can be a good linkage. So you look at the pictures on the bottom. What do you think? It looks like a resort or Everland or Disneyland or something, right? So the picture on your left corner, it looks like Britain, England, and then probably Spain or Italy in the middle, or the German castle on the right. But actually, this is the R&D center of Huawei in Dongguan, near Shenzhen. And then the size of each R&D campus is half of the Yeouido. And then there, 100,000 R&D personnel work there. And then they are spending 31.55 trillion Korean won, 31조 won. It's amazing money because this year the government R&D budget is 35 trillion Korean won, 35. So one single company, Huawei, is spending just like entire Korean government. So it is surprising, right? And then most surprising point is that last year they opened the new second R&D campus in Shanghai. This is a landscape of Shanghai. There are more than 40,000 offices and then 100 cafes. Right? So think about these big, amazing sizes. And then if you go to Shenzhen, it is not surprising. You can receive your, food and then the copies by drones. And then this year, the Chinese company Yihang will initiate unmanned air taxi service, just like a photo on your right corner, right? And then China is quite ambitious. They are making very well organized different national level plans, and then they do East data, West compute in Korean 동수서전 plan. So idea is they're using east side data and then doing computer or data center in the west side, just like that. And then surprisingly, they are doing integration. This year they announced that AI plus strategy. So basically they are changing everything, financing, education, or manufacturing, or biology based on AI. So they are, making the full stack self-sustaining ecosystem, so-called chip-to-OS. So they are replacing NVIDIA's, the GPU, and then they are replacing framework, they are replacing OS, and then they are replacing the applications. And then, amazingly, they have the largest data. They are largest data producer in the world. They have a TikTok, they have a WeChat. They are generating huge data without regulation. So nowadays, their AI ecosystem is almost decoupled with United States. And then what we have to do? It's quite difficult because some government agencies they are introducing so many different AI regulations. However, I believe that we have to think about the balance between regulation and innovation. And then personally, I think we have to focus on promotion in this situation. So recently, the Korean government announced this full-scale AI transformation strategy. So they selected 15 national flagship AI transformation project, just like this one. And then they also announced that 7 AI plus X industrial flagship. But to be honest, compared to China, it's a very initial beginning step, just starting it. Also, the human talent and then data is important, and the public sector AI transformation is also key agenda. And then the national fund, we are trying to make a national fund, but in terms of size, it's very tiny. The China is entirely pouring and then literally burning cashes for the AI development. And then also we are trying to build sovereign AI by selecting national team leaders, but we have to see what is going on because it's just on the beginning stage. And then also data center is also important, but we are just drawing a picture. A so-called AI highway must be built in a short time. Also, there is a good signs like NVIDIA supplied GPU, but let's see. Okay, so what's our aim? I think even though Korea announced a very ambitious plan to compete with China or to develop to achieve further technological advancement in the field of AI, I think there are a lot of agendas to be resolved in the near future. For example, first AI policy or sovereign AI policy. Actually, it is different. Sovereign AI must focus on internalization or accessibility, but the general AI policy is different. You should think about the AI transformation or multilateral collaborations also. So what is clear our policy directions? That's number one. Second one is R&D or ecosystem. So I cannot explain here in detail, but thinking about the China's approach, they are thinking about the ecosystem, not a single R&D. But in my perspective, the Korean government, they are very ambitious about R&D, but do not think, or how can I say, do not effectively promote ecosystem building. That's a problem. And the most serious problem is the balance between promotion and regulation. So there are many different Korean ministries. They are announcing regulation, and the National Assembly, as National Assembly members, they are announcing very strong regulation to regulate the AI. But we have to think about what is a proper balance. Last one is there AI governance? Can the president office can control the different ministry stakeholders? We have to think about what can be a very effective governance in the era of AI. Okay, so I think we can continue discuss these topics in the panel session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, speakers, for your wonderful insights. Now we'll be moving into panel discussions where all the speakers from the session 1 would debate and also take questions from the audience about the issue of artificial intelligence and humanoid robots. Now I would like to invite all the guest speakers from session 1 to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your fantastic, inspirational talks, Dr. An, Dr. and John. Thank you. And we're back, and I would like to first preface with this that we are a little bit behind the schedule, so we're gonna keep this panel discussion to 15-minute session. Hope you understand. My apologies. And I would like to first ask this question. So it seemed like there are some challenges in the field work when utilizing Hyodol, this entire system. And also, your talk was really interesting, Dr. An, but at the same time, it was really thought-provoking because I started to feel like, oh, what can we do? What can we learn from the past and like past failures, and what are the lessons that we can learn so that in order to navigate this interesting time all together as an entire nation, what can we do? So my point is that what can we learn from these failures or limitations from your own work? And for example, when Dr. An's regulations come to like the regulation, innovation, the contrast, how can we apply that notion, whether it's even feasible to apply that approach in order to survive in this time? And Dr. John's care networks, when it breaks down, and what are the challenges, and how should policymakers, organizations, and technology developers build in resilience and learning capacity when regulatory experiments, setups, attempts don't work as intended? So what can we learn from the past, and how can we apply those lessons to navigate the future world? That'll be my question.
Okay, Okay, so it's a very tough question, and then actually we failed a lot, and then as we pointed out, learning from the failure is very important. I believe we should learn in the era of AI. It's quite difficult to say it's a failure, but our experience on the game industry, right? So even though there are many competitive Korean game companies in this country, but sadly, because of a lot of different regulations, they are doing businesses not in Korea but globally. Of course, it's good, but losing domestic market cannot be a good sign for the industry, obviously. Right? So thinking about the game, actually, the game was mainly organized by Ministry of Culture and Tourism, Sports. And then they approached, the bad effect on the children. So they introduced some kind of a shutdown regulation after campaign. And then there are so many different regulations. So I'm not blaming this, but this approach is, viewing game not as an industry, but as a culture or things, right? So we have to see the multifaceted characteristics of an industry. Of course, I believe AI is especially so because it can be applied everywhere, right? So that's the reason why in the end of my presentation, the governance is very important, right? So because it's a very complicated, it has a multi-phases. So different perspectives should be embraced when we develop our policies.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure. From our study of the field study of the technologies in use, so we look at how technologies are actually used and introduced and practiced in our daily lives. So from our perspective, regulation is not anti-innovation. It's regulation is how to ensure the innovation is done effectively and ethically. So we try. I mean, in the elder care system, for example, We cannot just say, oh, let's advance technology to the extreme, and then the other problems of care will be solved. It doesn't work like that, as I try to show in my presentation. We need to, yes, we have technology, that's great, but we need to understand the life of the elderly users, how they live, how they eat, how they spend their time, and how they are taken care of by the government welfare system, who are visiting them, how much time they spent with them, and what are the relationships, what are the problems in that welfare system. We need to understand all these policy environment or the practice environment of care before we introduce these technologies into this welfare system. So regulation for me means how to make sure the innovation fits well within the existing systems of policy, practice, and even culture. So if we pay attention to all these policy and culture and norms and etc., then we can eventually make innovation actually work effectively and ethically. So that's how we see things between innovation and regulation.
Thank you so much, Dr. John. I think there's a common thread here that it's essential to take into consideration multiple stakeholders and entire society, maybe global environment as a whole, and then it's not wise to just implement the technology right away, but we need a lot of pilot testing, like a sandbox system where we can test out different ideas, and I think these really links to one of the projects I've been recently involved. So I had a chance to analyze the interview data. The interview was done with NASA JPL operators who worked on Mars 2020 project, and also the US DARPA challenge, like the subterranean challenge. And then they were working with machines, robots, autonomous, with varying autonomy. And then we examined how trust evolves between human teammates in this multi-human machine agent teams, and also how trust evolves between human and also human machine teammates. And what we found was that surprisingly, the machines, the robots that are used in this really high-end, high-stake mission projects, they're not as human-like yet. So it's in trust toward them were determined by the humans behind the curtain, so to speak, who developed the program, who were operating the system and such. However, what I found interesting was that the trust between human and human teammates was rooted in the open communication and being able to feeling safe even when they sometimes fail and make mistakes, being able to communicate openly about their failures, and rather than shutting down the system or laying off that person, encouraging them to learn from those failures. I think that kind of spirit is really necessary as a whole. We need to listen to multiple stakeholders. I was thinking if the game industry listened to not just maybe parents or caregivers of children, maybe if they listened to more developers, maybe the trajectory could have changed. Maybe they didn't implement the overall a blanket system, regulatory strict regulation. Maybe they were more willing to be more flexible. So I think it's important to have, as a society, as culture, have open-mindedness, of being able to be human, we can fail sometimes because we're humans, and we can admit our mistakes, and then it's high-stake mission, of course, the AI, everything, but we should be able to trust each other. I think it'll be really nice to have kind of system, and instead of just talking about whether innovation is best or the regulation is the right way to go and such. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. And let's move on to the next question. Hopefully we can cover one more question, and then get questions from the audience. And where's the question? Okay. So, is there something distinctively Korean about how these AI-related policies and technology development play out? So, broadly speaking, should Korean policymakers view these cases as, we just talked about, as building blocks for globally competitive innovation systems, or do they reveal governance challenges that are specific to Korea's socio-technical context? So, the question, the gist is that what's the uniqueness of Korean environment, society, policy, climate, and what would be the best way to utilize our advantages, strengths in order to survive in this era?
So it's also a tough question. But thinking about the Korean unique characteristics, I believe it is quite interesting because for a couple of years ago, when the first industrial revolution was dominated our newspapers, the Korea was the most sensitive country in the world. And then other countries also were very curious about that. And then we found that the Korean people were very sensitive about the job replacement by AI. That's the reason I believe. So I think that that is linked to the nowadays AI regulation atmosphere. So we benchmarked a lot of top European regulation like GDPR or AI Act or something. But we have to think about why the European country introduced so strong regulation. Because the dominant company, global leading companies like Google, Meta, Amazon, they are United States. So because they are not the European company, they want to protect their market from the US. So they are building strong regulation. So there's no reason why we benchmark the European regulation. We have to find a different approach because we have a neighbor, we have a Kakao, we have many AI startups. So don't need to just to mimic or imitate the European regulation. So that is my point. And then our strong point is we are very strong in R&D, and then we are very efficient, so we achieve a lot of things in a short time, very efficient people. So even though we are a little behind, like ACE or Thanks Global, I believe if we focus on, and then as you saw, we collaborate with many different stakeholders with little conflict, then I believe we can achieve great competitiveness in this field.
Thank you.
So what's Korean about these care robots that I showed you today? Part of it is very Korean because it's the name itself. I mean, Hyo. It relies on our cultural expectation that a grandchild or grandchildren should be cute and it should be entertaining to their grandparents and pay respect to their grandparents, etc. So it relies very much on our cultural ideas about how to take care of the elderly and etc. And the parents-kids relationship and etc. That's why it's figured as a kind of young grandchild. So in that sense, this technology is very advanced, but it is also very cultural. Technology is always, almost always cultural, in my view. So then, what happens when people in other countries, developers in other countries, try to develop similar robots for their own elderly population? Then applying the Korean model directly to other social and cultural contexts may not work because they have different expectations about the relationship between child and parents. They have different cultural expectations about the robots and the cuteness of the robots. So they may have they feel differently about this childlike robot. And then also we need to also think about these different national systems of care and welfare. The Hyodor works relatively well with the existing Korean welfare system because they do a lot of work to make that fit. But other countries, of course, have different styles, different systems of elderly care, and then the different health care, and then different kinds of budgets. So they will have to consider all these differences of context and systems when they try to develop this technology that can work within those contexts.
Thank you so much. I think so. I think we all can agree that Korea has historically been a very fast innovator, and this is how we have made economic growth and what we're cherishing as a society, the values. Thank you. And I was wondering, I think overall, both the speakers, Dr. and Dr. John, were suggesting that it's essential for us to come up with our own way of regulatory system, like with caution, right? So I would love to talk to you both and everyone all about like, what would be that concrete plan for us? How can we design a system as an entire society to continue these discourses, and actually have like entire infrastructure that really incentivize these discussions overall, and listening to multiple stakeholders and different experts from diverse disciplines. So I would like to end with that hope, actually, my personal wish, and also good luck Korea and everyone. And thank you so much. And do we have time to take one quick question from the audience by any chance? Or we don't have any time left? Sorry. 2 minutes? Yeah. Maybe we can take one question from the audience group or from Mentimeter. If not, you can email us anytime. You can find us in that booklet that you just got, okay? Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished speakers, for your incredible insights on how rapid technologies and rapid advances in artificial intelligence and humanoids, robots are reshaping society and emphasizing the need for human-centered technology to actually develop and guide Korea's future science and technology policy. Now, we would like to move into session 2, titled The Return of Geopolitics or the Rise of Technopolitics, Korea's Strategic Positioning Amid US-China Rivalry. Now, this session will be moderated by Dr. In-Taek Han, Visiting Research Fellow at CSPS Korea. Please welcome all speakers for the session 2 with a round of applause. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to session 2, the return of geopolitics or the rise of technopolitics. And it has a subtitle, which is Korea's strategic positioning amid US-China rivalry. My name is In-Taek Han. I'm currently a visiting research fellow at CSPS Korea. It is my great honor and pleasure to moderate this session with our distinguished guest. We are here today because we believe technology has the potential to revolutionize our lives, change our societies, and even change or reshape international relations and also our future. The keynote dialogue and session 1 examine the implications, both negative and positive, of cutting-edge technologies, most notably AI and robots. In continuation of previous 2 sessions, session 2 deals with technological competition, specifically the one between United States and China. And the panelists will discuss how South Korea might be best navigate the China-US technological rivalry. And we are extremely fortunate to have excellent panelists to deal with these issues with us today. I know we are short on time, and I know your patience is running out, so I will try to be very brief in introducing each speaker. And the first speaker to my left is Professor Kim Han-kwon. He's a director of Center for Chinese Studies at IFAN's National Diplomatic Academy, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And previously, he was postdoctoral fellow at Tsinghua University and also director of Chinese Studies at ASEAN Policy Institute. So he will give us a brief overview of Chinese foreign policy. You have maybe 10 minutes or maybe 15. So please welcome Professor Kim.
Thank you very much, Dr. Han. Hello, everyone. I'm Han Kim from Korean National Diplomatic Academy. I'm very happy to see you all today, and also it will be my honor to be a part of this wonderful session. I will today introduce U.S.-China strategic competition and China's foreign strategy based on international political views. The first, I'd like to talk about the China's vision and national goals under the Xi Jinping leadership. The first term of the Xi Jinping leadership, which began with the 18th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, CPC, introduced a vision of a Chinese dream, 中国梦, aiming for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Subsequently, the Xi Jinping leadership set the ultimate goal, building a great modern socialist country by 2050s, based on socialism with the Chinese characteristics. This goal is framed by the concept of the two centennials. First, the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China, CPC, in 2021, and the 100th anniversary of founding the PRC, People's Republic of China, in 2049. And second, China's view on the international situation. The Communist Party of China leadership entering the 21st century perceived the international situation as a period of strategic opportunity. For example, President Jiang Zemin said that the first 20 years of the 21st century constituted an important strategic opportunity period that our China must firmly grasp and fully utilize our strengths. And this positive outlook of the international situation continued under the Hu Jintao era and throughout the first term of Xi Jinping leadership. However, halfway through the second term of Xi Jinping leadership, China's hopeful period of opportunity transitioned into the period of instability and uncertainty. The major reason for the significant shift in Chinese vision of the international situation is mainly two reasons. Externally, first, deepening strategic competition between the US and China, and internally, downward pressure on the Chinese economy. Due to the changes of the perception of the international situation and US-China relations, the Xi Jinping leadership's foreign strategy has shifted dramatically from Deng Xiaoping's hide your strengths, keep low profile, bide your time, Taogang Yang to strive for achievement, fun fire your way. Furthermore, the Xi Jinping leadership is concerning that the inauguration of the second term Trump administration in January 2025 has further increased the uncertainty in international situation. The third theme is current status of US-China relations and China's domestic and foreign situation. I think China seeks to stable long-term strategic competition with the US based on three principles. The three principles is mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. However, China expresses a strong will never back down if US harm China's sovereignty as well as security and development interest. And I'd like to see each sectors, what is really happening between the two big countries. United States was the political diplomatic setup. The US has strongly criticized China, pointing to the situations in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The US characterized China as a country that does not respect universal values of human rights and democracy, and also one that threatens the international rules-based order. Furthermore, in the process of debating and criticizing China, the US want to rally liberal countries so that the competition frame from US versus China to liberal democratic nations versus China, so that the US government want to get the advantage in the strategic competition. And China want to respond to this US criticism. The Chinese government pointed out Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region is not only international issues, but also domestically very sensitive issues called sovereignty and territory and unification issues. And also President Xi Jinping, who wanted to pursue long-term rule over the Chinese politics. These issues is very sensitive and intrinsically linked to the President Xi Jinping's political status and authorities, as well as the legitimacy of the CPC, the rules in China. So Chinese government using patriotism and ideological education. At the same time, the Chinese government strongly control over the people's SNS control, the social media things. And using this policy, the Chinese government strength internal unity and spirit of the resistance against the US. At the same time, this nationalistic policy may stir the people's nationalism and enhance approval rating and loyalty toward the party and also President Xi Jinping leadership. And at the same time, the Chinese government externally emphasized diversity of values of social political systems. And the Chinese government said the values of human rights and democratic issues are not universal values, but rather unilaterally claimed by the US. And the Chinese government explained that there are many various the values and social political system. So the coexistence peacefully is the real the people, the international community pursue for their peace. And the military security sectors. The Chinese government most concerned that the US government link NATO and US the allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific regions. For example, the UK, France, and many other NATO states published their Indo-Pacific strategy document. For example, France, Germany, the Netherlands, UK, Italy, and Sweden, Czech Republic, and also as an intergovernmental organization, EU and NATO published their strategic document for Indo-Pacific areas. And next, not only releasing this strategic document, but also the NATO countries dispatched naval vessels to the Indo-Pacific region and joining in the military actions. For example, France, the UK, the Netherlands, and Germany, and also Sweden in 2024 announced that they would participate in the military drills in that region. And US, in 2021, AUKUS was inaugurated, Australia, UK, and US, and also invitation of IP4 to the NATO summit in 2022 to 2024. And recently squad in South China Sea. It is another challenge for the China's military security dimensions. The Chinese government must respond to it, so internally focus on the continuous increases in defense budget and military civil fusions for the future war. And they want to make tangible achievement through a centennial goal of the founding of the People's Liberation Army. This is the table for what the GDP growth and the Chinese defense budget growth rate. For example, 2022 and 2022, this is a COVID-19 pandemic situation. So Chinese government, Chinese GDP goes down, but still the defense budget is around the 7%. So this will show the Chinese government to increase the military capability, whatever the Chinese economic situation is. Externally, China expected to pursue breaking through the Chinese containment and seeking to disperse US powers. And economic sector, the US wants to seek de-risking or the exclusion of the China from some high-tech industry with allies and partner countries. So the US government internally legislative policies like IRA, and externally using TPC, IPEF, and USMCA. Recently, as you can see, the Trump administration imposed a high rate of tariff, not only over China, but also over allies and partner countries. The Japan and EU accepted it, but China, Russia, and India is opposed to it. And economic sector, the Chinese want to using this situation and internally using dual circulation policy, using the internal market for utilize for continuous development of Chinese economy. And self-reliance and advanced technology, the Chinese government want made in China 2024, and in 2025, and last year, the Chinese government announced the new quality product process. And Global South, strategically, Chinese government want to approach to this area using BRICS Plus and Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And Chinese government want to governance, the global governance. Chinese government already announced the Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, Global Civilization Initiative, and this year, September, through the SCO, Chinese government announced global governance initiatives. Chinese government also want to emphasize the community with a shared future for humanity, and also want to advance of the Belt and Road initiatives. And after the tariff, the Brazil and India suffered from the 50% of high rate tariff. And this September 25 SCO, the India's Modi Premier visited to China, and to see the Russia, India, and China's trilateral meeting. In the 80th anniversary of Victory Days based in China, North Korea Kim Jong-un attended, and this Russia-China North Korean meetings was get interested. The Gyeongju APEC Summit at Busan, Korea, October 31st, finally the US-China summit was held, and many people, many experts evaluated in truth in the US-China trade negotiation. So this is the current situation, and also the US-China strategic competition will continue, and Chinese government now think they got some advantage over China in the trade negotiations. So I hope I stop here, and we can further discussion in the later discussion session of this semester. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kim. We started with the notion that US-China rivalry may be a reflection of technical competition between the two superpowers. But after listening to Prof. Kim's presentation, I have a feeling that rivalry is more than just technological confrontation. It seems to be that it is a byproduct of President Xi Jinping's national vision to modernize the economy, to strengthen its military, and increase international influence. And also, it may be a response to threat perception, right with right or wrong, to what Chinese may be seeing overly interventionist U.S. policy toward maybe China, Xinjiang, or Chinese values or political and economic system. And then, so, and especially because China perceived Trump policy too much aggressive and hawkish. So if I don't know whether I kind of summarize Professor Kim's presentation correctly, but if my characterization is correct, then U.S.-China rivalry may be something more than or less than technological competition. Okay, now we like ask the second speaker of today. Dr. Song Hee-dal is a CEO of Financial News and visiting professor of the University of Seoul. Dr. Song is one of the most influential journalists today with decades of experience. So let's welcome Dr. Song.
Hello, very glad to meet you here. My name is Mr. Song Hee-dal. As you know, I'm actually a working journalist. I started my career from Joseon Daily in 1990, and last year I finished my 33 years job at Joseon Ilbo, and also later I shifted from Joseon to Seoul City University as a visiting professor. And this year, since July 1st, I have been working CEO and president of the Financial News, which is one of the major economic daily newspaper with internet news. Okay. So as Professor Han introduced, today's topic is Donald Trump's foreign strategy. So I prepared today's contents like this. So time has already passed more than we expected. So let me give my presentation very shortly and briefly. As you can see, I have written 4 books focusing on American politics and media, and also American Congress and lobbying phenomena. Actually, when I was working at the Hong Kong correspondent, I had an exclusive interview with former President Bill Clinton, and also a very important and high-ranking Chinese tycoons in Hong Kong. So first, let me tell you the worldview of Donald Trump in order to correct understand the future of Donald Trump's foreign strategy correctly. I think that his worldview is summarized as this one, just 3 sentences, which Donald Trump expressed in victory speech last November 6th. Maybe as you can see, maybe it's very little word, but let me tell the 3 sentences. Every single day, I will be fighting for you with every breath in my body. I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. I think Donald Trump's essence of his worldview is summarized as this one word, golden age of America. That means defeating Chinese challenge for world hegemony, global hegemony, and also secure the America's hegemony very dominantly and very absolutely. So for this, he wants to build the strong, safe, and prosperous America, not only for his generation, but also for a future generation in the United States. So I think that his foreign strategy okay. Maybe this, as I said, as I written here, a golden age of America is the centerpiece of his worldview. And also, on the background of the golden age of America, he is now pursuing every words and actions since his inauguration this year, January 20th. So before he inaugurates as president of the United States, he mentions very frequently like this: I'm not isolationist, but I'm America first. I'm a nationalist and a globalist. I'm both. This was his mention when maybe 2016, March 26th. But anyway, that kind of thinking has not changed little. American greatness and defending Western world. Domestically, he wants to rejuvenate again, like Xi Jinping, America's greatness. So his thinking is very similar to former President Ronald Reagan and a very conservative politician Pat Buchanan. They are common in patriotism, anti-multiculturalism, and social conservatism. And in this era, his very unique foreign policy is also one of the manifestations to defend the Western values in Western civilizations, particularly in competition with China. China is a different civilization. Trump has shown very favor or closeness with Vladimir Putin. I think that this kind of gesture comes from his pro-Western civilizations, maybe a similarity. And anyway, his political slogan is what summarized as MAGA, Make America Great Again. But anyway, this is another version of Golden Age of America, I think. And for this Golden Age of America, Trump's foreign policy is now playing first in geopolitical sense. That is geopolitical reshaping. I think it is true. He is genuinely reshaping the global world order for the United States and by the United States and of the United States. So we can see very many phenomena and many instances like the Panama Canal, Canada, Mexico, Greenland, and Middle East and BRICS, China and Japan, even with Korean partners. He is now reshaping and reorganizing the global order in his favor, or in America's favor, I think. But nowadays, Trump's foreign policy or foreign strategy is mainly driven by the technopolitical purpose rather than geopolitical sense, I firmly believe. Because as it was manifestly and witnessed and confirmed by the modern histories, maybe success or failure stories, as you know very well, Korea's rapid success and rapid economic rise comes from the realization is that science and technology is the best tool or best weapon for the development and for the modernization. It was pursued by former President Park Chung-hee in Republic of Korea. And also, as we know very well, we Korea have been very successful and a little bit advanced country by dint of maybe science and technological orientation, Korean government. And also, China's quite rapid success also comes from their very emphasis on science and technology. Session one, Professor, Professor An very briefly and very succinctly explained the Chinese government or Chinese CCP also very devote their all energy and resources to the maybe development of R&D and science and technology very rise. Maybe Trump's policy can be, we can see, particularly in artificial intelligence and also crypto field, we can very confirm. So as you can see in this PPT, only just executive orders during 7 months, Donald Trump had issued 4 executive orders: Stargate project, removing barriers to American leadership in AI, advancing AI education for American youth, and White House AI action plan. Particularly, Stargate project only requires U.S. government to spend 500 billion US dollars. It is now more than ROK's next year's total budget, more than. And strategic pursuit by Donald Trump for the technological supremacy of AI, and you can see very easily. And also, it is pursued by alliance between Washington and tech titans, tech billionaires, such as Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Alex Karp, and AI and crypto czar David Sachs. And his new and core partners are very numerous: Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, Masayoshi Son, Jensen Huang, and also recently Sundar Pichai even joined this parade. And also Trump has mentioned very frequently in campaigning speech, he wants to be a crypto president and he wants to build a crypto capital in the United States. As soon as he inaugurates as president of the United States again this year, he issued very successively several crypto rebuilding maybe actions by way of executive order, strengthening American leadership in digital financial technology in January, strategic Bitcoin reserve and US digital asset stockpile executive order March 6th. And even Genius Act was acted just July 17th this year. It is a vivid manifestation how much Trump is genuinely pursuing the technological supremacy, not only AI but also crypto, and this kind of efforts is now playing not only just AI or digital tech, but also green tech, biotech, and even space tech. Very fierce and maybe very important and competition with China in this field. So let me say my presentation's conclusion. I can say this age, the new Cold War between USA and China can be equal to say that the age of technopolitical competition and technopolitical war, I believe, and I think so. Because we are witnessing a very huge difference between old Cold War and new Cold War. Old Cold War, Soviet Union is the same maybe civilization like USA, Western or Catholic or Christian civilization. But China is quite different and very contrasting and very uncompromising civilization. China wants to build again their own Chinese supremacy and Chinese world dominion. So in this sense, but nowadays, as you know well, since the invention of nuclear weapon, there can be no major war between nuclear power states. So, for the global hegemony, only it can be done by non-military or non-nuclear nuclear power. So, Trump and Xi Jinping, particularly Trump, wants to have a very good relationship with China for not having a major war with China. So this can be called as managed peace, and also superficially managed peace, but underwater, a very fierce competition in the scientific and technological field. As I mentioned, space, tech, digital tech, including AI and crypto, and biotech, and also green tech. So in this juncture, we Koreans should have a very wise and prudent strategy between US and China's war. So let me talk and let me discuss again after the third keynote speaker. Thank you very much for your kind listening.
Thank you very much. I think I found very interesting and rather unexpected parallel in their presentations. According to Professor Kim, Xi Jinping is pursuing the Chinese dream, something similar to American dream. So Xi Jinping is trying to bring back the past glory of China in today's times by having stronger army, stronger economy, and rich country, nation, and so on. And I think Dr. Song made almost exactly the same argument. Trump's goal is the golden age of America. So he is trying to bring back the golden age of America, just like Ronald Reagan did. But in this time, he's using his crypto policies, he's using his AI policies. So both leaders are pursuing similar goals, and both leaders are using similar tools. Is this the rise of technopolitics, or is this rise of return of geopolitics, or is it something else? So I think after listening to their presentation, I seem to have more questions than answers. Lastly, Professor Lee Seung-ju is Dean of Social Sciences at Jurong University. He is world-renowned expert on politics of technology and economic security, and he has been consulting Korean government for a long period of time. So let's welcome Dr. Lee.
Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to join this valuable venue, which is taking place in a very timely manner. And also, I particularly would like to express my deep gratitude to Professor Han for inviting me to this symposium. And, actually, I was asked to give a presentation about the South Korea's response to the US-China strategic competition, or particularly the high-tech competition. So I will try to focus on that topic. Again, we are, I think, running out of time, and I thought more and more people leaving this auditorium, so I will try to be very brief, and then I will set you free immediately after this session. In order to answer the question of how to respond to the US-China strategic or high-tech competition, we have to better understand the primary nature of the competition between the two countries. So in that regard, I would like to highlight a couple of points. Of course, Dr. Kim and Dr. Song very correctly mention the primary nature of the US-China competition, but I will briefly recap the major points about this issue. First of all, why high technology in the context of the US-China strategic competition? First one is that given the long-term as well as the multi-dimensional nature of the strategic competition between the two countries, it's going to be highly important to secure current as well as future competitiveness, right? So because a lot of scholars and the experts tend to forecast that this strategic competition will last at least 30 years, up to 50 years, right? So in that regard, it's going to be highly important to secure future competitiveness as well. So if you spend too much resources to the current competitiveness, eventually you might, it may turn out to be a loser. So in that regard, high technology would be a very effective means to secure future competitiveness. Second point is that, as is well known, actually the war domains has rapidly expanded from Army, Navy, and Air Force to include the cyber and space, right? So in the 21st century, the war fighting capability actually critically hinges upon the ability to wage war in multi-domains. So how to link tightly the 5 different domains. Actually, again, high technology is a key to wage a 21st century type of war and battles. The third point is that actually it has to do with the nature of the dual technologies. Actually, as is well known, these days, the boundaries between military technologies and the commercial technologies have been very blurred. And the time needed for spin-off and spin-off technologies, I mean from military technologies into commercial technologies, or from commercial technologies into military technologies, that time span has substantially shortened for the last couple of decades. That is what we have seen in the war between the Ukraine and the Soviet Russia. Actually, you know, the Ukraine-Russia war is a kind of a drone war, right? And the drone, who's gonna be? Do you know those drones are made by which country? Yeah, China. But China is a #1 exporter of those drones, but most of them are commercial drones produced by DJI. But those drones are actually mobilized in the battlefront without any modifications at all, right? So that has vividly shows that blurred boundaries between the military technologies and the commercial technologies. Yeah, this one. Let me move on to talk about the U.S. perception about the U.S.-China high-tech competition. Actually, Professor An left a couple of minutes ago. Actually, in his presentation, Professor An talked about the Harvard Belfer Center's report published this year. But in my understanding, this report, again published by the Harvard Belfer Center, which was published in 2021, actually ignited very intense debates within the US about how to deal with China's rise in high technologies. Right? The title is The Great Tech Rivalry, China versus US. In this report, actually the research team found that in many areas of high technologies, actually China is on par with the United States. And in some technologies, actually, China already overtook the United States, right? On the other hand, in another research paper, actually, this is very well-known book, co-authored by Blackwell and Harris, dating back to the 2016. Actually, the general consensus within US is that in the face of the China's rise in high technology, actually, US is not well prepared to address this kind of challenges arising from China, right? That's one of the reasons why the United States is trying to securitizing high technologies in order to address the China's challenge in this area. And then what should South Korea do? in this context of the US-China high-tech competition. Then, in order to answer again to this question, we have to better understand the changing global nature of the high-tech science and technology field. First, on the left side, you can see that the collaboration between the United States and China in the area of science and technology actually plateaued in 2020. And then since then, the collaboration between the two countries began to decline. Right? On the right side, it's well known that the US and China are engaging in very intense, again, intense competition in AI. Right? The pattern is more or less similar. From 2021, actually the collaboration between the two countries began to decline. Right? What does this mean? Right? The global order in this area, I mean the science and technology, is about to be fragmented. Right? South Korea should adapt to this rapidly changing environment. Right? Particularly given that until recently, South Korea heavily relied on science and technology collaboration in the United States and China. But those two countries try to decouple in the area of science and technology, but South Korea in general is heavily dependent on the two countries. And the South Korea in general have to come up with a new science and technology collaboration strategy. That is one suggestion I would like to make. And the second is that actually, again, given the nature of the multidimensional game between the United States and China, actually the impact is not limited to high technologies. Already spill over into the other areas, such as the trade. The geopolitical or economic competition between the two countries actually spilled over to the trade patterns in the two countries. On the left side, it shows the changing trade pattern of the United States. The x-axis is the geographical distance, and the y-axis refers to the geopolitical distance. As you can see here, the share of China in the US trade actually substantially declined by 6% point for the last 7 years. And another geopolitically distant countries, such as some countries in the Middle East and some countries in Central Asia, which are under the heavy influence of China, actually their share substantially declined. Right? On the right side, China is more or less the same. China has made every effort to reduce its dependence on the countries with distant geopolitical relations. Right? Those are the countries on the top. As you can see, again, the United States, South Korea, and Japan. Their share has substantially declined for the last several years. So we have to prepare for this type of rapidly changing trading environment. Right? That's one of the reasons why South Korea have to diversify away from the China and some other countries. If you look at the South Korea's vulnerability, it's not limited to the trade dependence. If we look at another structural vulnerability, it is again well known that South Korea has a very competitive, highly competitive export industries. On the left side, it shows that South Korea has been consistently number 9 or number 10 in the world in terms of the export competitiveness. South Korea has a very strong, very competitive export industry. But on the right side, if we look at the right side, South Korea again has been consistently number 1 or number 2 in the world in terms of import vulnerability. Right? On the one hand, strong export. On the other hand, very vulnerable import. How to deal with this type of challenges? Particularly, one thing I would like to tell you is that the industries with a strong export competitiveness and import vulnerabilities are exactly overlapping with each other. Say, what are the strong export industries in Korea? You know all, right? What are they? Semiconductor, battery, electronic vehicles, etc., right? Those industries are heavily dependent on the import of MP is materials, parts, and equipment, right? So from the perspective of South Korea, in order to export in these industries, we have to import as well, right? That is the sources of the structural vulnerabilities. We have to reconfigure this type of vulnerabilities in order to stay competitive in the age of US-China strategic competition. Another point I would like to make is that if you look at this graph, actually immediately after the Japanese government decision to drop South Korea from the so-called white list, right? The Japanese version of export control towards South Korea, actually. South Korean government has conducted a very systematic as well as comprehensive analysis of the so-called supply chain and found that there are more than 4,000 items with, as you can see here, with 50% or more import dependence on foreign countries. Right? More than 4,000 items. Out of 4,000 items, 3,000 items are from China. Right? That is another source of vulnerabilities. So that's one of the reasons why South Korea's economic security strategy actually closely related to the supply chain security or supply chain strategies. So supply chain strategy for the last several years has taken the center stage of the South Korea's economic security strategy. That is one way of dealing with the repercussion or ramification of the US-China high-tech competition from the perspective of South Korea. Another case I would like to highlight is that this is the report done by the IMF. And because, as I said earlier, there are numerous forecasting worrying about the possibility of the US-China tech decoupling. I have 1 minute left. If we look at this graph, South Korea is, of course, there are 6 scenarios, but out of 6 scenarios, the 4 scenarios tell you that South Korea is one of the countries that suffers badly from the US-China tech decoupling. I would say South Korea would be the country that suffers most out of compared to other countries. Right? So South Korea has to be prepared for this type of US-China technological decoupling. That is one of the reasons why I would like to pay attention to the high-tech competition between the two countries. Then, wrapping up, then what should South Korea do? I would suggest these type of policies. First of all, right, South Korea should not rely on one specific policy. Rather, South Korea should be able to creatively combine the various policies. Right? Sometimes those policies may have the trade-off relations. Right? This is what is happening in the era of the US-China strategic competition. Number one, diversification matters all the time. As I said earlier, South Korea should diversify away from China, but also from some other countries. If our dependence is too much concentrated in a few number of countries. Number two, South Korea also should seek the Korean version of reshoring and friendshoring policies. That is one way of reduce vulnerabilities. Third one, I think again Professor An touched upon this issue in the previous session. South Korea should be able to increase its technological sovereignty. That is closely related to the promotion of industrial policy. So how to link the technological sovereignty to industrial policy is a kind of key to the South Korea's sustainable economic as well as industrial growth. And the one last part I would like to highlight is the international cooperation. As I said earlier, these policies should be with a kind of trade-off relationship. Say, on the one hand, we have to seek technological sovereignty, but on the other hand, we still have to seek international cooperation. Right? But this is not a normal time. So we often say that this is the era of the normalization of the abnormal. So we have to be very creative in combining these 5 different policy sets. That is my suggestion. Let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for clearly identifying the dilemma where Korea is in, and also suggesting very complex and constructive ideas to overcome structural vulnerabilities and for South Korea, not to escape the victimization from U.S.-China rivalry. So I'd like to thank the panelists, our panelists, for sharing your insight with us. And I hope the students here have learned a lot. And I think that they also have questions for the speakers. So if you have questions, then you can scan the QR code and send in your question. And then eventually your question will appear on the screen over here. So if you have questions, then send in your question now. Then while I wait for your questions to appear on the screen, I'd like to have small discussion with the panelists. Because we don't have much time, I will just ask one question and ask each speaker to answer with a very specific number. My impression is that U.S.-China rivalry is at least two-dimensional, maybe 3 or 4-dimensional, but let's say it's two-dimensional. The one is geopolitical conflict. They want to be strong, rich country in the world. In case of Trump, he wants America to be strong again, so that it can become the #1 country as it was after World War I and World War II. And China wants to become a strong country once again. It was a strong country many centuries ago, but it was colonized, it lost war and so on. So it wants to bring back the old glory. So, and then any country that makes it difficult is potentially an enemy. And I think that explains why China find America uncomfortable and America find China uncomfortable. So one dimension is geopolitical conflict. The other dimension is technological competition. Both countries think that the best way to become rich and strong is by developing and acquiring modern technologies such as AI and cryptocurrencies and so on, or having very strong supply base and so on. So to me, rivalry between the two countries is not easily explainable in just one dimension. It requires at least 2 or 3 dimensions. So question to you is that if you have to choose a number, what percentage of the conflict is geopolitical, and what percentage of the conflict or rivalry is technological? Do you understand what I mean? So let's go. Let's start with Professor Kim. So how much of the U.S.-China conflict or rivalry is technological and geopolitical? Give us a number.
For me, it's 6.5 versus 3.5. And the high technology competition is 6.5.
So in terms of percentage?
It's 1 to 10. I thought it's 65% and 35% of Chinese government wanted to disperse their the budget to develop.
Oh, the budget. Okay, you have. Okay, Dr. Song, please.
Yeah, very good and interesting question. I think, well, similarly, I think 40% or 60%, 40% geopolitical and 60% techno-political. But I think even Trump and Xi Jinping is maybe very competing in the field of geopolitics. It is pursued by way of very peacefully. Such as the title of the peace through strength. So Trump's goal is not to wage a war, but to maximize his own interest as much as possible, but not waging war, just threatening or maybe very unique his way. So I think that the most of them, more than all, about 60% of the U.S.-China library is now playing just not just in the field of the technopolitics area. I think so.
The safe answer to your question is that 50-50. Yeah? But to be frank with you, actually I have never thought in that way. Because for the last, I don't know, so like for the last several years, even a decade, I have argued that it is highly important to link the economy and security. And high technology is a very effective means to link the two areas.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, I have promoted the idea of the techno-economic statecraft. Actually, every country, like including South Korea, should be able to take advantage of high technology as a means to link economy and security. So rather than the percentage of proportion, actually, the way of linking the two would be more important. That is my point.
Yeah, that's very complex answer. Yeah, there is no really simplest solution to the dilemma. So it is correct to think more deeply. And we think that we are living in a time of revolutionary technological change. But according to historians, most revolutionary time in terms of technology was 1 century ago, when cars were invented, when airplanes were invented, when telephones were invented, when radio was invented, when TV were invented. And to them, AI revolution is kind of a continuation of the communication and information revolution that started with the internet. So some people like Michael Berry think that AI is actually a bubble, not a revolution. And the fact that he is making money these days may suggest that technology doesn't explain everything. It explains an important part, but maybe not. Okay, we have questions from students. If we have, okay, oh, okay. So I will read these questions to you, and any panelists who would like to answer, please go ahead and answer. Maritime hegemony competition, and what should Korea do? Anyone who would like to take this question?
Let me go first. And I'd like to emphasize the strategic autonomy and national consensus on our own national interest and strategic priorities. First of all, the US-China strategic competition, it makes international politics as a big power politics. That means it's not the just, unjust, or right or wrong games. It is only, we have to see the power, and also this power, how to reset the international rules and order. And we have to analyze, expect which countries, big powers, new international rules and order, that is our advantage or disadvantage. If advantage, we have to extend our cooperation. If disadvantage, we have to compromise with reduce our disadvantages with the big powers. So that many countries between US and China have to think of it and how to try to make a breakthrough the kind of difficulties. So they think about strategic autonomy. They have a good relations with big powers, but not to be too much dependence on the big powers' rules and their norms. So that we have to increase our own, especially Korean style strategic autonomy. For me, it is a self-strength based on strategic autonomy is very important. So that if we increase our strategic autonomy, probably we have, in short term, we have difficulties in relations with big powers, probably US and China. But in that case, we have got the base of the national consensus what is national interest and what is your top priority, so that even though we have short-term frictions with big powers, but we can endure and we can gather together and we can overcome the difficulties and we can follow or pursue the long-term and stable national interest of South Korea.
Thank you very much. Well, how about this? We don't have enough time, but if panelists would kindly agree to stay after the closing session and willing to meet students and answer their questions, then probably we can finish this session now, and then and let our conversation or discussion continue even after the closing ceremony. Can you stay after the closing ceremony? Every one of you? Okay, thank you very much. Then I think I'd like to thank everyone for your time and all your patience as well. And this closed session of today's symposium. Thank you very much.
질문 있으시면은 최혜식 끝난 다음에 우리 연구원 드릴게요.
Thank you, Dr. Han, for your wonderful moderation. We would also like to thank all of our panelists for our valuable insights. Please give a round of applause again for our panelists. Now we'll begin our closing ceremony. Please welcome once again Dr. Moonjun Kim for his closing remarks.
How was your day? It's long, right? Thank you very much again. Our distinguished guests, colleagues, and our participants stay until the end of the symposium. Really appreciate it. I sincerely thank everyone who took part in our 2025 CSPS Korea International Security Symposium. Today, we successfully addressed our core theme, Future of the Korea's Diplomacy in Global Tech Competition. We analyzed the impact of advanced technology on international security and discussed strategies to respond to this challenge. Through our keynote and 2 sessions, we heard excellent presentation and had lively discussion from our expert. I believe we have gained much clearer insights into Korea's diplomatic choices amid the US-China technology contest. Crucially, the symposium effectively connected the academic research with the policy planning in vital areas like science diplomacy, human-centered technology, and Korea's global standing. I offer my deepest gratitude again to former Minister Park Jin and the keynote speakers, including Dr. Han, Dr. Kim, Dr. Lee, and Dr. Song, and all participants for sharing their valuable knowledge. The Center for Security Policy Studies Korea will continue to lead research and dialogue. We promise to strengthen this platform for experts and policymakers to interact and collaborate. Your interest and participation are the main driver of our center's growth and the future of the Korea's security diplomacy. Finally, I want to sincerely thank the organizing team, Dr. Han and our senior fellows of CSPS Korea for their super hard work. As we conclude, I hope today's discussions inspire practical steps for all of you. I wish you a safe trip home and continued success. Again, thank you very much, everyone. 대단히 감사합니다.
Thank you, Dr. Moonjun Kim. This officially concludes today's symposium, Future of Korea's Diplomacy in the Era of Global Technological Competition. We would like to thank all our distinguished speakers, our moderators, and participants for joining us today. We would especially like to thank Minister Park, who is not here, but he was here a while ago, for his gracious presence, and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources and the Incheon Free Economic Zone for sponsoring this event. Thank you once again for attending, and we'll see you in our next year's International Security Symposium. Thank you. 나가실 때 도시락 받아가시고요. 바우처를 통해서. 그리고 혹시 연사분들께 질문 있으시면 아까 한 박사님 말씀하신 것처럼 연사님들에게 질문하시면 될 것 같습니다. 감사합니다.
질문 있으신 분은 제가 그 스태프분한테 전달했거든요.